I'm Tracy Lobertini. I'm here with Bill Cox. Bill's the owner and founder of Alco Builders and Realty, and we're just going to get a little bit of history about the business and Bill's business and things you've done here in La Follette. Not all the things you've done. So the first thing I was going to ask while we're doing this interview is, what made you start Alco Builders? You and Charlie, your brother, started Alco as a company. What made you do Alco as a company?
Well, actually, Charlie, my brother, and I was in business in Knoxville, and I was also selling cars. I was in the car business. I had been since I got out of school. That's all I'd done is sell cars for several years. And I went into a guy at a club, and we was talking about sales. I said, well, sales, if you're in sales, you can sell anything. He said, no, you car salesmen, says, you're just order takers. But people come in.
Is that where you got that line? You're just order takers?
Yeah.
I heard you use that a lot.
You're an order taker.
I heard you use that.
You're in sales. So with this conversation, I said, well, if I knew what you're doing, I guarantee you, he said, you could never sell this like I do. My business in the car business, people come to you, you sit there and you just sell a car.
Right.
Nothing to it. I said, well, this is not, if you can sell anything. I said, if you give me, let me know what you're doing, give me a week's training, I guarantee you I can sell a thing. In 1 week's time, in a week, I could sell one.
And he didn't believe you.
No, he wanted to make a wager. In 1963, people on the make, like, I guarantee you to selling cars for the people. I was actually at that time, I was in management, but a salesman, we just guaranteed him $75 a week.
For the whole week?
For the whole week. So he makes me a bet of $100. So I thought, we'll take that for $100. So we go out, and he shows me what he does. He measurements on the house and how much he gets for each, for each square siding, or if you did a addition to the house, it's so much a square foot, and they had everything figured out. And I worked with him and let him know, he gave me a good idea of what I was doing. So I did that. Well, I've been doing that for about a week. And I come in, and what he does, he has people go out in front with door knockers.
Yeah.
He goes up and sets appointments, and then he goes in, it's a closer, and closes the deal, okay? So I go over there, and we're sitting at the club, and his closer, and this is after we did close, it's like 9 o'clock in the evening. So this closer come in, his door knocker came in and said, Doug, I really need to go over here, we've got one that really wants some prices and stuff tonight. And he says, well, I've had a couple of drinks, I came in early. He says, guess you put him off tomorrow. And he says, no, I cannot do that. I really need you to come.
Let me interrupt you. Did that guy get paid
He
if
does.
the deal? Okay, so that's why he was so hot.
Oh yeah, his commission is so
Based on what you could,
that.
okay.
So I said, hey, I haven't had anything to drink, I just got off work, I'll take it.
You were probably dressed up, probably looking professional.
Well, I just got through work.
Yeah.
I was selling cars. I just got through working, and actually had a suit and tie on,
That's how everybody dressed.
Back
Work,
in
yeah.
63,
Yeah.
So he said, okay. So go ahead and take it, Bill. So I go over there, and I work with him, and I barely get back before they close it, And actually, my door knocker sitting over there almost went to sleep on me. But I went outside, and I took the people out. And
Was it dark?
It was dark. And I took people out, and I made a contract. So I made a contract right there, a contract. And it was cash on completion, because they did financing and stuff too in those days. But it was cash on completion. And I came back in, I handed the deal. He says, well, I don't know about this. I says, you sure you got this? That's a deal. So back then they didn't have the 3-day right of rescission.
Right,
They did a contract. You could just, so
You were on the hook. You signed it. You were on the hook.
so long as you get started.
Yeah.
So the next morning he's out there with his people on the job. And so, I'm still selling cars, and I'm in management really. And so the I keep an eye on it, I go over and watch them, they brought it out, and what he done, he just worked as a salesperson, and he had people at his siding business that had crews that worked, and they did so much per square, and they knew what it was, what it cost him,
Right.
what his cost was. So they came out and done a great job. We put stone on the front and some white marble siding. I built a little deck on the back, and it was a pretty good sized job. It was quite a bit of money involved in it at those days. So I kind of keep an eye on it and everything, and because I sold these people the job, and so I go back and everything was done. They was real happy, and they could have paid him. So I went over then and said, everything's good, and I'm ready for my money. I let my hand out, and he lays my $100 bill over there, and I look at it, it's just, but he lays another $100 bill on top of it.
And you really like that.
Yeah, and when he got through, I took the $100 bills and put them in my pocket. I went back to the general manager, and I said, at the car place, Bill Vick. I said, Bill, I have to find somebody else to run your used car.
I'm in the building business.
This is more money than I could make in a month back, or I thought 2 or 3 weeks.
In one deal.
In one deal.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm out. I'm out of this business right there. This is 1963. And I left in 63, and I went to work with
that guy.
Actually, I did for a day or two. I went to work with him. And I said, well, matter of fact, he was just a guy that come through town.
Right.
He was Tupelo, Mississippi. And what we call now is a highbinder. They come through towns and put a sales pitch on, and they're out to another town. They think they work
just moving through.
Yeah, they think they can work a deal, and they go on to, they think they can work a town out. So, well, I found out that after he left, I was on my own, and then instead of paying the people that he was working with that done the siding, I said, why should I do that? I'm in business there, and I've been,
right.
So I go over and I get myself set up as a dealer for Alco aluminum.
Okay.
So I get myself set up as a dealer, and I said, well, I just got my own crew, because the business we was in Knoxville, we was in contact with the guys next door, and all the people that worked in we knew a lot of people worked, so I just started getting the people that's in the business that started to work for me in Knoxville. So I worked around Knoxville and in Knoxville area, and go out, and I went up to, I thought like he did, I had thought you had to go. I went up to Harlan, Kentucky, and did some business, did some down in Georgia, did a doctor's building down in Georgia, and I came back, and later on in '63, I came to La Follette, and I started working out here for a job. And I couldn't stay, as soon as I get one job, somebody else wanted another one. And I get another down the street.
You couldn't work La Follette out.
I haven't. I still, this is not.
Okay, how many years? It's 22.
It's 2022, and I
that
still
was
have,
63.
That was 63.
You still haven't been able to work it out. I love it.
It's like, it was great, and I enjoyed the business.
Was it easier here because you knew people and you had contacts?
Actually, I'd been gone for quite some time, and I came back, and I went to school here, and I left, and I'd been gone for about several years, because I went to service when I was really young, and after I got out of service, I came back and went to school up there in Youth for a little while. But other than that, I hadn't been in this area for a long time. But it wasn't that I knew people. It was just that we was doing a good job.
And there was a need. You were meeting a need.
And the people I had working with at the time was really conscientious, and they did a really good job. And
unlike the crew you got now.
Well, it's a little bit different.
Okay. Thanks. You gotta bail me out on. Okay, so you started that, and now when was Charlie working with you then in that, your brother?
No, Charlie still kept the business. I started this business in 63. Actually, I got an office in Knoxville for a little short time. And I come out here, and I started so much business, and then I went in, I got an office out here, and I started staying out here all through the week, instead of driving back to Knoxville, because I just stayed busy all the time, and go back on the weekends, you know. And then I moved out here again in 63, 64 maybe. I actually rented a house and moved out here. And then I've been into business, and I did very well financially. In 65, I rented a building down, it was old Claiborne Oaks building.
Not this one.
No, the old Claiborne Oaks building.
By Continental Campers?
Where Continental Campers is now. I rented that building from Wheeler Hollingsworth, and I opened up a business there, and I started doing awnings, and we had an awning shop, and we made awnings.
Like the carport?
Yeah.
What I would think of as the
Carports and
carport.
awnings and stuff
Okay.
of this nature. And I got
That was
several.
one of my questions I was gonna ask you, was when did you start doing the carports?
I did them in probably in 64 or 65. I did a lot of carports in probably about a year. I've been in the siding and stuff business about a year. About 64, I probably moved in there. I actually rented that building, and it wasn't until I actually rented the building in probably 64, because I built my house up on the lake in 65.
Now, when you built that house, it was Rogers Dock, not Powell Valley
It
Marina.
was Rogers Dock, and I
Right.
bought the lot from Jack Rogers.
Did you?
And I built the house, and matter of fact, I had a little problem building a dock down there, because Jack told me I could do anything on the house, and I had no problem building a dock and everything. Well, his dad, Mr. Rogers, came over and told me this day that we was doing a lot of dozer work stuff. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm fixing to build this dock." And he says, "You can't put that over on TVA property." And I said, "Well, I'm not moving it over to TVA property. I'm just cleaning it off, and I'm going to build a house back here before, which I know I'm not allowed to build up to the 1020.
Right.
So he says, "Oh, well, the next morning I get up and go up. I had these people working. The next morning I get up there, and he had me stopped. So my people had to stop, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm going to have to go and get a permit to build me a dock." Well, a good friend of mine worked for TVA, Jack Sumner worked for TVA in Knoxville, and I called him up and told him what I was doing. I said, "I've got to go to Morristown and see about if I can get a dock in." And he says, "Yeah, I know what it is, because he's been out there with me and helped me." And he says, he had a draftsman work for him, he was an engineer. He said, "I know exactly what you need, and I'll just draft you what you need."
Oh, wow, fancy.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah.
So, I go up Morristown, and I go in, and the guy was, I got up there, I did it, it's lunchtime,
Yeah.
and I walk in, and the guy says, "Well, I want to talk to you, but it's lunchtime. If you want to hang around and wait till lunch." So I waited around after lunch. And when he got in there, I got to talk with this guy, and he's really, and I was interested in TVA about why they raise water and stuff,
Right,
and kept
right.
it up and down. And he was telling me that what they could do and what they couldn't do, and why they had to keep water down some below. So the people down below us said they had
Right.
water, keep it up for the shipping and stuff. So anyway, I'm really interested in, he talked to me for a couple hours. He said, "What do you need?" And I told him this. He said, "Well, that's no problem, you signed up for it."
Do you know you could never do that today? It'd take months to get in front of somebody up there.
So I come back the next morning, Mr. Rogers came by. He says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm putting my dock in." He says, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, just watch me."
Pull out your
I
phone.
didn't know how to show anything. I said, "You just have to
Oh, you're
watch
just
me."
being a renegade. I'm gonna do it.
And he let him watch me. Anyway, so we went ahead and I started that business. I built my house, and I got to build it. I started building houses. And I don't really know why I got into building houses. I bought some property off at Teague subdivision off of
You told me the other day where that is, off Carwin
on
Road.
Carwin Road. I built a couple of houses there, and later I built another house. And I lived on the lake then for, I think from 6 till I built this building, in 74, I believe, okay? If you look, I think 74, I built this building, and so I lived about from 65 to 74, I lived there about 9 years on the lake. Oh, at 65, but I lived down, I had the building down there on the Central and Indiana Avenue corner down there. Then I moved out here when I closed that one down. And by then, before that, I started building houses. And I was just building the conventional homes and building houses. And then they come along with this 235 program where the government subsidies low-income people. And low-income people, they could buy a house with a couple $100 down, and payments would be $45, $50 a month.
Of course, the numbers are so bizarre to me to think you've got a $45 a month house payment, but wages were so low, and the houses, the price was so low. I know when you got into Valley View, the price of the houses baffles me.
When I built the house in Valley View, I had set up the 1,200 square foot house, and I sold it for $12,000.
That's unbelievable.
That was probably, now this was I built several houses before that, but this was, when I was building those houses there, I didn't start. I had to look on the map.
Yeah, we'll look on the map. 74, it says when the survey was done.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
74, yeah.
That's what it was. I thought it was 74.
Yeah.
Because I had built this building about the same time, and when we put that subdivision. When I grew up on where I bought Valley View, you know, when I grew up there,
Oh, that was going to be one of my other questions. But it's like you've read my mind. How did you end up picking that area for Valley View? That was going to be my question.
well, I grew up in my family. After my father was killed when I was 5 years old, I came to live with my father's family. And my aunt was married to Carl Higdon. And Carl Higdon became like a father to me.
And your brothers,
My brother and I lived
yeah.
there with
Your
him. So
brother.
we lived at Valley View. We didn't at the time, eventually we moved to Valley View. And so when he got ready to retire, he wanted to put it up for sale. And actually,
About what year, guess?
the 60, it was in 73,
Okay.
about 73, because it's about a year before that I
Okay.
started subdividing it. And of course, we got to talking about it, and he said, I want to sell this, and Hack Ours was up here, and they offered me a price on it, and I said, I'll just take it. And I said, well, if Hack Ours will buy it,
Hey, how about me?
I'll just buy it. He said, well, you know, Bill, I'd rather sell it to you.
Right.
And
right.
and I'd rather sell it, and I'd like to just for you to buy it and pay me some now and pay me as, you know.
Yeah.
And then for that part.
Structure it so.
Yeah, structure, sure. So I did that.
And it had been a dairy farm before? Was it
Been a dairy farm.
A dairy farm.
Dairy farm. I had to tear the silos down, which was very expensive, you know, then to build the silos, but I did not want to be in the dairy business.
Right. So that's when you started Valley View, was on that, your family's farm that you had purchased.
Farm, I purchased from them, and then I subdivided it.
So basically what I know about Valley View is the newer houses are in the back and the older houses are in the front. So you started developing
Right in the very front.
right in the very front. Okay.
Actually, it started off with, I did 43 lots in the front part section. And we did those, and then we said Valley View 2.
Oh, okay.
There's Valley View 1 and Valley View 2.
We started talking about that you did Valley View, and were you gearing those houses toward that 235, or what was the program that was here? Were you gearing the house more for the need of the area or more for the product that the people could get to buy them? What was kind of the driver for the type of house you built in there?
Well, actually, to start the house, the first house I built after was a conventional home, and it was a little bit more money, and that was a nicer
Okay.
house. And I built several houses that was not for the 235.
Okay.
But the 235 program was available. After building those houses and stuff, and in 70, in '72, I had so many people coming back. I'd sold houses then. I'd started in '65, '66, '67. And I built up all the houses. And this time people started selling and going to
You want to buy it back, or you want to
bigger
sell
houses.
it, or what? Yeah.
Wanted to moving on,
Right,
because
right.
a normal person moves every 7 years.
Yeah.
So they want to upgrade, and
Right.
so I either trade with them. I traded, buy some houses, and I traded with houses, and which I did that out of the car business. People in the real estate business didn't do trading business.
No. You bring that old car sensibility back into the real estate.
Right, if somebody wanted to had a house, they said, "Well, I got to sell this house, but I'll buy that." And I said, "Oh,
I'll take that house.
I'll buy that one, and I'll sell it." So those houses I sold, like a lot of them for cash and stuff, and I did a lot of closings. So I had a lot of people wanting me to sell them, so I seen a need that I need a real estate license in order to do this. And at the time, there's only a couple of realtors that was grandfathered in the Follett. But although the test had to be, at the time now, you had to work for a realtor for a couple of years as a
affiliate
broker. And
yeah.
then, but I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to go.
You've been doing it.
I didn't know rather work for. They nobody really did work for a year. So I made an application up, and I had something nearly 40 or 50 houses that I'd sold at different times. Some of them FHA, how they was financed, what I had done cash and how I closed them, and I put my application in to take this test for my broker's license. That was in 1972. I got a broker's license. At the time, I was probably the only person that had been licensed through the testing.
Right. Instead of grandfather.
Right, and probably. I don't think anyone else had been had a realtor's license at that time in 1972. And then I really enjoyed the business, and I'd done most of the selling of houses I built because I was building several houses a year. And I got up to 1982. I had several houses on the market. And by this time, I'll say the Carter.
Not to be political, but we were in a bad state right then, weren't we, in this country?
Things went tough, and prime rate went completely out of sight. And it cost, I'd sell a house, and I would, at the time you could actually set money aside. You had to pay in front cash for so much money. If you wanted to buy $100,000 worth of credit over there, you could buy it by putting it, and then it was less points. It cut your points down. The points may be 8%.
Right.
And if you bought this money, you could get it down where the points would be only 5%.
Right.
Well, I was building enough houses, well to do that.
Right.
To buy some points and get it down. And another thing about selling houses, when I built houses, like I built some houses at the golf course and stuff like that, and those conventional loans, and I could go down to First Federal Savings Loan, and
so you could say, I'm selling Tracy this house.
yeah, and Mr. Hollingsworth would go, Mr. Hollingsworth would say, well, let's go and look at it. I said, look, I got this house sold. I got it sold for $25,000, and they've got 20% down. And, well, let's go out and look at it. You can go out and look at it.
Get in the car. The bank president or the bank, whatever he was.
Yeah, he was president.
Bank president.
Says, we'll go out and look at it. I mean, this happened that one time, but really in particular, I remember it. He said, we'll go look at it, and came back in, and he says, yeah, it's okay. He says, be in here in the morning before 11 o'clock. They didn't have no right precision there. He said, you be back in here in the morning about 11 o'clock, and we'll close, because he's a farmer. And he said, I got to go to the cattle sale.
So I'm going to get this deal done for you, but you got to do it before I got to go to the cattle sale. Can you imagine, do you know that right now it's an 11-page contract that I write? And that takes probably 2 days just to get everybody signed
Mm-hmm.
and to get it bound, which means everybody's agreed, everybody's signed, everybody knows. And then once we get that bound, a 30-day closing is pedal to the metal to get it done in 30 days. And you were getting it done in 24 hours. One time.
You know how the system, the way it is. But, again, I say that all that, don't need to be all that work, all that paperwork.
You don't need to kill all those trees, do you?
I mean, how the paper people, the paper business say that. But I sold a lot of houses before I got a real estate license, and I needed to see what I needed for the real estate license. And after I get the real estate license, I didn't really list out as many houses.
You didn't go out and do like we do now.
No.
We list everybody's house and
Right.
do them everywhere. Yeah, we've
I have a
changed
real
the
estate
market.
license, but you're a realtor.
Well, I don't have anything else to sell. If I don't go out and kill it, I don't drag it back in here, I don't have anything else to sell. So that's why it's a little bit different. You kind of had a ready-made business model. Excuse me, you would build them and then you would sell them.
Right.
And then you would build them and then you would sell them. And that was super because you didn't have to go out and try to find something else to sell.
Right.
You were creating your own inventory. So I know you were in the military, you were in the Army.
I was Air Force.
Okay. Went into the Army, came out in the Air Force, or went into the Air Force?
Well, actually, when I went in, it was the Army Air Corps.
Okay, before the Air Force.
The Air Force. The day I went in 1947, which is with the age of 14. In 1947, at the end of 47, the last day of 47, the Army Air Corps became the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So I was in the Army Air Corps. When the Air Force was first formed, I was one of the first, along with thousands of others, was member of the. I was an original member of the U.S. Air Force. Okay. We changed our signatures and everything, and went on blue stripes.
So it changed over.
And,
So, and Charlie was Navy?
Charlie was.
Is that right? Okay.
Charlie got drafted in the Navy. I was getting drafted. He was going to get drafted, and he got his draft notice to come to the draft, and he went to join the Navy that day. He'd going in the Army, so he went in the Navy for 4 years, and he went in 1950. I had got out of service in January the 10th, 1950, and he's got drafted. I was going to school, then I go to school at LMU, and I was going to school at LMU when he got drafted. So they laughed at me when I went to service at 14.
Now, nobody knew.
Their career was coming up.
Well, yeah, but nobody knew that you were 14.
Oh, no.
You lied about your age.
Actually.
But you embellished your age.
I was thought I had to have a birth certificate, and I went in and signed up the first day as Charles Cox. And he was on March the 7th, 1947, he was 17.
Oh, so you used his.
I went in right then in April, so he's a month.
Yeah.
So I go in 47, and I was going to use his name and his age. See?
You didn't see any problem with that.
Well, I got down there and I found out they didn't ask me any questions, so I said, I've got that name really, my real name is Bill Cox. And
Let's get this right.
And my age, and I didn't ask for anything. I said, yeah, no.
So you used his age still yet?
Yeah, March 7th, 1930. And they said, well, at 17 you have to have your mother or your parents to sign for you. And I said, well, my father's deceased. I had that down. But I had my mother was living. She said, well, your mother will have to sign for you. Well, I didn't know where my mother was at the time, but I did find out that she was over in Leatherwood, Kentucky. So I got a hold of her. I hadn't seen her for years, but I get a hold of her that evening, and she said, well, ain't no way I'll sign for you.
She didn't want you to go.
I said, Frank, you've done so much for me. I really appreciate you.
See ya.
I come back and I went down the next day, and I said, well, I found out, I told them before I didn't know where my mother was at. I said, I come back, I said, well, I found out my mother's deceased too. So they just put on their mother. They said, your guardian will have to sign for you. I said, I don't have a guardian. My guardian, I just got kicked out of school.
So you didn't want to come back to that. That shit sailed. You didn't want to come back to that.
So I said, I don't have a guardian. So where you spend the night last night? I said, with my uncle. I thought, well, that's your guardian. I said, no.
Well, they were just trying to make it happen for you, weren't they? Were they getting paid by the head up there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Recruiters, they had to get recruiters. So he said, your uncle, that's your guardian. I said, well, my uncle was the youngest of the kids, of my grandmother's kids, and he was about that much older than me. But I knew where he's at because he worked second shift in mines, and every day he'd be over the pool room shooting a little pool before he went to work. So he said, I went over, I said, Ed, I need you to sign some papers for me. He said, well, I'll do anything you need for me, Bill. I said, we have to go over here to the courthouse, you gotta be notarized. So he went to the courthouse, he notarized those papers. The next night I was off to Louisville, Kentucky. I'd never been anywhere outside of Follett, 100 miles radius, anywhere.
And what were you wearing?
At that time, my other uncle, my marriage, was about my size, and he gave me a
suit,
brown pinstripe suit he had. I put that suit on, and I go to Fort Knox. I took to Louisville, I took a bus to Louisville, and from there they had military transport out to Fort Knox. And I got in that bus going to Fort Knox. And I got in the seat, and I ripped the pants completely out of the bottom of the seat. And I didn't have nothing else on. I took the coat off and tied it around.
I remembered something about that suit getting messed up. That's why I asked.
Took the coat off and tied it around the back, wrapped around that suit. So I had that. I had to use that. See, there was 120 of us trying to get in the Air Force. And you'd have to take his test and stuff. There's 9 of us made it. So they said, take our physicals and everything in Fort Knox. I spent about 2 weeks there, I guess. So we go out to, they said, everybody be at the train stations, like at 12 o'clock tonight, be at the train station in Fort Knox. So I get out to the train station, so Cox, I said, yes. My name was first on that bag of order, so they said, Cox, I said, yes, sir. They said, here, you take these people.
You're 14.
You're in charge of people. You take them.
I didn't give a 14-year-old the responsibility of my 16-year-old poodle. Well, they thought you were legit.
I was first one. No, I was first out that order.
Yeah.
You know.
ABC,
yeah.
C's first, yeah.
Oh, they just said it all. So we get on that train. That's when I got on that train. I got down to Louisiana, Mississippi. We going to New Orleans next morning, and they didn't have a caboose. They just had trains, you know.
Just ends.
Yeah, I walked all the way to the back. You know how the back deck of the last car, and I'm standing on that deck out there myself, and I'm looking. I'm hanging over the rail, and all that. That train's going clickety 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 click, and I look at it. I says, "Hell, Bill, what have you done?" I said, "You'll never see Tennessee again."
But you weren't involved in Korea
No.
At 47.
No, I didn't see. I'm very fortunate. The Korean War, I got discharged January the 10th, 1950.
Okay.
I got my 3 years service in. Got out in 1950.
You're 17.
I'm 17. I'm the youngest person, one of the youngest people that ever lived at 17. Because I started before I was 18. But anyway, the Korean War didn't start till after the summer of 50 when it really burst out, see. And they started.
Have you ever been to that war memorial in Washington, D.C.? The Korean War Memorial?
No.
Have you ever been? It's the neatest one I've ever been to. You all really should go. It's. I mean, I don't know if you have any interest in going to something like that, but it's really neat. It's my favorite one.
I was supposed to be on something down at Ed Bayless put me on. I've never seen it, have we?
You down at the courthouse?
Yeah, I saw it. It's there. Your name and the correct date.
Ed wasn't making a point of it. Ed did it. I did that. But anyway, No, I was fortunate about that in the sense I didn't have to go to my brother.
Now, if it would have happened while you were in, would they have not let you out, maybe?
I would have been in for the duration.
Yeah, then you were very, very fortunate. Because you
Yeah.
didn't have to leave the country.
No, actually,
Or did you?
well, I went to Alaska.
Okay.
That's not the country. It wasn't then it wasn't a state.
Really? It was not a state when you went?
No, it was a possession then. See, we
You're
didn't.
getting up there.
Huh?
You're getting up there.
Yeah. No, it was just a possession at the time. Yeah.
Does the Royal Pool Room really have the best hot dog? You know, they advertise that they're like world famous or the best hot dogs. Now, where does that come from?
That comes from actually my uncle, which was married to my
Yeah.
aunt, well, my father's sister.
Yes.
And they grew up with him, and he was like a father figure.
Yeah.
And he started those hot dogs in probably 1935.
That kind of chili. The hamburger
made-
meat chili,
He
no
made the
beans.
hot dogs. He did the hot dogs, and they did them then. And this started in 1935, in 35, 36. And actually, at the time, I had just some of those records they had, and they would buy a case and a half of Cokes and so many buns per day. And he actually went on the street and asked people to come in and eat the hot dogs. Now, they had a pool room too.
Right.
In there.
And everybody still calls it the pool room. They don't call it the Royal Lunch or the Royal.
It's
Was
Royal
it-
Lunch and Billiards is the name of it.
Oh, was it?
Royal
Okay.
Lunch and Billiards.
Like, I have a lot of family that went to Dayton, Ohio area to work. My mom's family in Bell County, Kentucky, a lot of them went to the Chicago area. I think somebody would go and come back from work. You know, you live that. You know, when people would come back and say, oh, there's work here. But do you think that's what got, like, my cousins grew up coming down here in the 50s for the summer, and they always got the hot dogs. And even today, and they've got grandchildren of their own, the first thing they want to do is come get those hot dogs. We have a funeral, they want pool room hot dogs because that's the comfort La Follette food. Do you think that's how it got so popular? People that left and came back, and it was a staple, it was always here?
I think so, because a lot of people left, this area after, especially in the early 50s, after WW2 was over with and came back. And of course, people had been in the service in the military, had worked at the pool room, and they had gotten drafted in the pool room. I went to work in the pool room myself about age 12.
What'd you do?
I washed dishes.
Prestigious.
At that time, we had beer, and a lot of people. By the time I'm 12, Oak Ridge, is going strong, and we have a lot of people coming from Oak Ridge, and they working. We stayed open late, and we had back then the coolers and stuff was iced down. We had 3 big long coolers, and on Saturdays. We had so much business on Saturdays. C.B. Higdon was my first cousin, actually, like a brother. He and I were about the same age. And on Saturday, all we could do was to carry stuff from the back and bring them up front. And we'd slip the Cokes and drinks, soft drinks and beer up the front and put the other ones back. And they'd be cold trying to get up there because that ice would,
Right.
and it kept us busy all day long. And we sold so many hot dogs. People don't believe how many dozen hot dogs we get out. And this is unreal that you would say 100 dozen hot dog buns. Or 40 to 50 dozen, I guess it's. Once they could handle, we could put them beneath the pool tables, stacked up. We had 5 pool tables. We stacked them in behind the pool tables for buns. Now we had a big back room that we kept drinks and stuff in.
And it's in the same building where it is now?
Back bit, yeah.
Okay.
But we couldn't put buns back there because the rest would eat them up.
So you put where the rats wouldn't like all the noise and the light under the pool table, and they'd be safe, right? The buds would be safe.
Yeah, we was inside, we moved.
Do I remember you telling me that they didn't carry over food?
Never carried over everything. Everything went out. Everything finished.
That's amazing to me because that had to be a loss.
Well, they knew about what they could do. They were
Okay.
smart enough to know how much they could do. And if they see there's running short, they lighten up on the chili.
Get a little light swivel, not a bowl.
Yeah, it's late in the evening, they had a good chili, buy a little extra chili. You know, they were good business people.
Yeah,
You know.
they were really smart business people, weren't they?
Yes, it was. Yeah. This is where I really feel like about what education I had. I didn't have much, but my biggest education was from Carl Higdon, with what he did, and
The way he ran a business.
the way he ran the business, the way he talked, and I talked to him about it, and about business. And
So up here, you had breakfast at 6 and they stayed open until midnight
Mhm.
on Saturdays. Every day or just on Saturdays? How late do you think they were open?
Every day.
Every day. That's brutal. That's hard, brutal work.
And so my brother told him, why don't you put a window in there? And the ladies came up, they won't come in
Yeah.
there, but they'll order your hot dogs to
I
go.
did it as a child.
And you go up there,
Yeah.
and get those hot
Get
dogs.
those hot
out.
dogs. Yeah.
But they were nicely home from all the people that lived here, went to Dayton, went to Detroit, went to all over the
Chicago,
country.
yeah.
They had kids from all over, and they bring them home, and they'd eat these hot dogs, and there's nothing like them
Yeah.
and they're still going. Everybody's trying to do the same thing around here.
Yeah.
Uh,
If you get a hot dog here, anywhere, it's gonna have that pool room chili style, that pool room style, you know, with just the hamburger meat.
the way we used to do the chili, we bought the chili dressing itself by the barrel.
Oh, wow, okay.
The original by the barrel roll. You go out in the store and you buy a little chili powder. You
Right.
get a little chili powder sitting in there.
Yeah.
Nothing like what we had. That's what makes the difference. It's the chili powder. You got to have that chili
And
powder.
they would get a barrel
A barrel
of chili powder.
Right.
How long did that last?
Couple weeks.
Saturday? When you think about the pool room now, everybody talks about hot dogs. But do I remember getting beans with a dip of the chili in it to make the chili beans?
Exactly.
Okay, so you just have pinto beans
You can
and
order,
hot dog chili.
you can order shit. They had, they cooked these beans and we had to, they bought the beans by the bottom.
Dry beans.
Dry beans. So you had to look them. So you sit over there and you look all the rocks out of the beans.
Yeah, so look at a bean, and for the people that have never looked at a bean, you're taking out the rocks.
Put them on the table. You get all the rocks out of the beans. You cook your beans, and then if you wanted pinto beans, you get pennies with a little onion on them. If you wanted chili beans, you take the beans, throw the chili in it.
Yeah.
Make the chili beans. Right.
I've gotten that before, and the first time I thought, what is this? Because you had to kind of stir it up because you had a hot dog chili and pinto beans. But it makes a great bowl of chili.
And they made beef stew.
Oh, yeah.
They made beef
Now,
stew.
what's a Jake plate?
A Jake plate is part of is a combination
Okay.
of the chili of the hot dogs with. You have 2 hot dogs with chili on it, and you put beef stew.
Oh, okay.
Throw beef stew on top of it. So that's a Jake plate.
Okay.
A guy came in one day and said he was of the Catholic faith, and he wanted to know if he had anything that didn't have any meat in it. And CB said, "Have you ever tried our beef stew?"
So I guess it wasn't heavy on the beef, was it?
The beef.
I don't, wasn't very heavy on the beef. You could do that and not be breaking your religion. I guess I'm just so excited. I'm so excited that I'm part of Alco because, like the pool room, we're no pool room, but you know how the pool room is a staple in La Follette. I feel like Alco is too. You guys provided an awful lot of housing for a lot of families. over the years.
I think we done a good job. We was always straight and honest with people and everything, and the people in the community knows that we have been, what we say we'll do, and we've been that way. And the most fortunate thing that's happened is when you came aboard, really, I was at a point at the time, I didn't really know what I was gonna do. I didn't have anybody here but myself that in order to continue on building I could do and stuff, but to really keep the real estate business going and the stuff that I needed to do, I really didn't have anybody. And I've been so fortunate to get with you.
We've been lucky, haven't we?
We've done a super job. No one could ever have done the job you've done for me.
There's plenty of people that could, but nobody would have loved it as much as I've loved it.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that. Nobody
Yeah.
loved it. I tell this story to people all the time, and I know I've told you, I was very happy where I was before, but I felt like I wanted to be back here, and I would pray, and I know I've told you this, I'd pray about it, and then I'd see you at church, and you'd say, come talk to me. And I'd think, well, I don't know what I'd talk to you about, okay. And then I'd pray more, and then Sandra at church would say, well, come see us at the office, and let's talk about this, and I thought, well, I don't want to sell those houses at Valley View. I don't think that's for me. I don't know. And then one day I was doing, we did communion. You know, we take our dollar and lay it up, and we go up at the Methodist church to the altar. And you came by and put your hand on my shoulder and said, come see me. And I thought to myself, you know that joke about the guy that drowns? And he says, Lord, why'd you let me drown? He said, I sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter. And I thought at that moment, at that altar, and I'm being funny, but it's true. I thought, maybe this is my boat and my helicopter, because you kept saying, come talk to me. And I kept praying, where am I supposed to be? And I 100% believe God put me right here, because it was good for you and it's good for me.
Absolutely, Grace.
I think that's exactly what it was.
I wouldn't say that much.
Thank you.